Welcome to another edition of Trunk and Tales as we navigate what's happening in the world of politics. I'm Stacy Smith, and with me to talk about all of this is my panel of political analysts and experts. I'm going to introduce them to you now. Jim Byrne is the chairman emeritus of the State Democratic Party here in Pennsylvania. He also served in the county and city governments. Keith Schmidt was the state director for former Republican Senator Rick Santorum. Keith also consulted Santorum on his 2012 presidential campaign. And Joe Mistick. Joe's background includes consulting Democrats across the state, serving in city government, and you can read Joe's thoughts on life and politics in the Tribune Review every Sunday. So one of our regular panelists, former Pennsylvania governor and Republican Tom Corbett, could not be with us today. Hopefully he'll be with us for our next edition. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Let's start with, well, before we go much farther, we all want to say once again a happy birthday to Keith Schmidt.
Hey!
Yes. Yeah, how about that? Keith had 200 of his closest friends in a park over the weekend, and I just loved being there. It was like the old days. I saw a lot of old faces, a lot of old Pauls from Allegheny County throughout the region. It was great, Keith.
What I liked about it.
Happy
birthday!
Welcome to the 60 Club.
And welcome to the 60 Club. Exactly.
I'm waiting to see if you've gotten any wiser, because 60 is a big, that's a big threshold to age, right?
And I said to Stacy that day, it was a big deal for Jim and him to make the trip. It was on the complete opposite side of the county. I said, but you don't understand what a big deal it was for Joe Mistick. I don't think Joe's left the city in 50 years. I said, he had that sorry look in his eye when he was at the park, like, where am I? You know,
are we in Pennsylvania still?
How do I get back?
City Public Works had a hazmat suit for him in the back of his car that would pump Pittsburgh oxygen if he needed it.
If anyone had a city railroad track, it's Joe Mistick. He knows everything in the city intimately, but you get him 1 mile out and you might as well be the end of it.
It was a scary place, buddy.
It's a scary
place. Glad to be with you.
Thanks for coming.
All right. Anyway, congratulations and a happy birthday to you once again, Keith.
Thank you.
And I will say this, by the way, as Joe mentioned, that it was a great gathering of both Republicans and Democrats, and maybe even some independents there as well. And cats and dogs can live and get along together, especially when they're celebrating Keith's birthday.
Yes.
So let us start with this. Former President Donald Trump has been convicted on state felony charges in New York. Hunter Biden, the son of President Biden, is on trial in Delaware on federal gun charges, and most observers feel the government has a strong case against him and that he could also be looking at a felony conviction. So, Joe, will either case have an effect on the election coming up in the fall?
Well, I think we have to start out by saying, let's not go for a false equivalency here. These are two totally different situations. As for former President Trump, I don't think it moves the needle. It certainly doesn't move the needle with his people. They're dug in. Biden's people are dug in. Now, there's some people in the middle who may be affected by this, and we'll see if the independents, the non-committed, those people who are going to step back and wait for a little more time to pass before they made a decision. We'll see if they're affected by this. I think they will be, and I think he'll lose some of those, and that small margin could make a difference. The Hunter Biden situation is totally different. Every family in America is dealing with that same tragedy of a child or a grandchild or a cousin or a brother or a sister, someone who's struggling with drugs, with an addiction, and there are consequences for that. I think the president has taken the right approach. He said, look, I'm the president, but I'm also a dad. I'm not going to comment on these proceedings, but I'm going to support my son, who we're proud of because he's made great progress.
That's it. And watch how the reactions from both the Democratic and Republican camps are of both of these trials, and look at the reaction you get. The Republicans, the Trump supporters, that is, talk about a rigged judicial system. They're attacking one of the fundamental tenets of a democratic republic because they don't like the verdict. Whereas on the Democratic side, what you're seeing with the Biden case is let the wheels of justice take their turn, and it is what it is. And one of them is running for president, the other is not. But I do agree with the professor. I don't know that it changes margins significantly. President Biden said it. This will be decided by who does better in the retail. It will be decided in November, and that's how it's going to be.
We lost Jim. Oh, there he is.
I'm back.
All
okay,
right.
Go ahead, Keith, your thoughts.
I don't know. I mean, I can't believe I have to comment on this, but we're in a weird place. I mean, this is.
I'll second that.
I've said in a long time, we're having a what was that, Jerry Springer world, and how many times is my one liner, at a time when we need Churchill, we have Trump and Biden. I mean, the world's never been at such a crossroads, the country, at least in my life. You just mentioned I've been here 6 decades. All right, that's a long time. That's a fairly long stretch, and I've been pretty active for 44 years of those 60 years. And I could safely say in 44 years, I've never seen us at a more perilous time for both our republic, for where we're heading as a nation, for where we're heading in the world stage. I mean, there's no guarantee we're going to be great forever. I mean, every great society starts to lose its way right around this time, right around 250 years. And it's never invaded until it implodes. It implodes first. We lose our way internally, and we are right now. I mean, in many ways, the verdict, I don't know. I mean, it was much expected. I wish the verdict maybe was from Missouri, or Kentucky or something. It adds to the storyline that it's in New York City. All right, it's just going to be it just adds to the fodder. This judge was, compromised. He gave money to Trump, got 5%. That, there's no real surprise of the verdict because it's New York. I think if the judicial system would have had worked its handiwork and would have had the same verdict somewhere else, it would be less controversial. And I don't know, even my liberal friends are saying, it's the letter of the law, spirit of the law. I'm not sure there's a lot of confidence that he's not going to win an appeal. Even they're glad they got him. I think it was a gotcha mentality. We told you that you have to wear the moniker of a convicted felon going into this race. But nobody in their right mind thinks he's going to do jail time. Nobody thinks that they're gonna take him in cuffs. And most people think it's some way down the road he'll be exonerated, or they'll say it's a mistrial, or they'll say an appeal thinks that they'll set aside the verdict. I don't think it would be to anyone's surprise. But they kind of got what they wanted. They got the issue to be debated coming into the election cycle. But
we're looking at an investigation. We're looking at facts. We're looking at 34 felony indictments. We're looking at a judicial system where the defendant is innocent until presumed guilty. We're looking at a system where the defendant's attorney was sitting there with the prosecution picking the jurors. We're looking at 12 individuals who not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 34 times had to find guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, how this is some type of democratic chicanery when the judicial system worked as it was supposed to, when the defendant had an opportunity to testify and chose not to, when the defendant's attorney had an opportunity to present witnesses but chose not to, how this is somehow rigged or that narrative is going to get any traction. It won't.
Well, that's a great speech. You're wrong. I mean, you're completely wet. You're not even close to being right. Nobody believes that. Even the people that wanted them convicted don't believe what you just said.
I mean, no, you're talking to the wrong people.
In that jurisdiction, he got 5% of the vote. The jury instructions apparently are an abomination. I mean, the trial itself.
They agreed to the. We're not talking about the people that were
in the state court. Yeah, I can go on and on and on. Nobody believes. They're glad they got the verdict, but it's not going to stand. That dog you'll never hunt. There isn't even a dog. The dog.
We're not talking about the people. We're not talking about the people that were at your birthday party Sunday.
Buy it. It's not. No one buying your BS. Oh God.
Yes, they are. They're not. But they're buying.
I'm selling.
He says something calming.
Let me wade in between my 2 friends.
Nice weather we're having.
First of all, if you're the defendant, you don't get to pick where you go on trial. That's just not the way our system works. You go on trial where the crimes were committed. That's the deal. In terms of the jury, both sides had an equal opportunity to pick and eliminate jurors. So that's pretty fair as well. That's as fair as we can make it. You're not guaranteed a perfect trial. You're just guaranteed the best trial we can give you under the circumstances. I think Trump got that. I think it's astonishing as well. I was looking for a hung jury. I think it was astonishing that they came up with a uniform verdict like that. But there is some issue on the jury instructions. There was some concern that they did not require specificity as to the grade enhancement or the degree enhancement that kicked it up to a felony. But you have to remember, since 1970, when the RICO Act was passed, which was used initially to chase, Italian American mobsters, you can be convicted of a crime that you don't know occurred, that you had nothing to do with, that you may have never heard of, committed by someone you've never met. So the law is, casts a pretty broad net.
Well, that's
So
broad.
I'm not sure what will happen on appeal, but I think that's their best issue. I'll grant you that, Keith. I do.
Yeah.
Right, you've made sense. I get okay. I get what you said, and I agree with you. In your first remarks when you first talked during this podcast, you said, "I don't know if right now it moves the needle." I mean, the
That's
people
right.
that
Yeah, I stick to that. Yeah.
I actually kind of I might be there too. Here's what we have to look at though, where it could move the needle, where it could really electrify Americas in some way, shape, or form that we might lose control of it is the next stage. The sentencing. Depending on how the optics. What is it? 3 or 4 days before the convention. There's people say, "Oh, they're doing that." Even if they're not, even if that's just the way it is, they're thinking, "Oh, this is a show trial." This is, and if that runs amok or overreaches or does something that looks like it's not befitting the crime, or they're prosecuting him more as a presidential candidate than as a person that committed this alleged this felony. That's where I think we should be prepared. That's where it gets, I think, real, and we have to see how the American people, and more importantly for our discussion, how the electorate treats that. Well, is there a sense of, oh, they went too far, and they're mad now, and so I'm really, I have no clue, and they're all, Stacy, but you two are lawyers. I'm wondering, like, what's this going to look like? I mean, what's the potential based on the crime? What can we be looking at next month?
Well, this judge is typically very hard on white collar crime, and this, of course, is a white collar crime.
Yep.
That being said, I wouldn't look for incarceration. I don't think that serves anyone's interest, and until a political decision is made, which is why I'd prefer to have the sentencing post-election, but that's probably stretching it out too far. Until a political decision is made here in terms of the will of the people, it can be earth moving when this sentence. So
let me ask you this, Joe and Jim. You both have been in in trials, sitting there as an attorneys. Will a judge like this one take into consideration what his sentence might do, as Keith is talking about? If he says, all right, you're incarcerated for 1 month, or you're not incarcerated for 1 month, is he weighing what the political ramifications of that might be?
He's already done
by political, what I mean is how people are going to react to it.
He's already done that. Any other defendant who acted the way Trump has, inside and outside the courtroom, in violation of the judge's orders, would have been jailed. He wasn't. And the judge said, I'm not, I don't relish the idea of putting a former president in jail. So he's already benefited from that.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
Good.
Look, between now and sentencing, there's probation, there's interviews, there's pre-sentence memoranda, there's interviews with the convicted felon, in this case, the former president, that you talk about, contrition. That's a big word, contrition. I don't think that this former president knows that word or ever heard of it or knows what it means. So by the time we get to sentencing, the judge will look at the pre-sentencing report as well. Donald Trump will get an F- on that. But he is tough on sentencing. If he does sentence him to jail, I don't think he's going to see the inside of a jail cell at any time soon, if ever. I don't think he'll take an appeal. Any sentence will be suspended. We get past the election, assuming he were to win, God help us. Yeah, there would be no sentence of these state crimes until after he completes his term.
All right, good. We need to take a break. This one took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but it was a good discussion. Thanks, guys. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Trunk and Tales. We're talking about national political scene right now. We talked about the conviction of Donald Trump, and we've talked about the possible conviction of Hunter Biden, but there are issues in this campaign, as a matter of fact. And at this moment, who is better positioned regarding the economy and the border? And will the student loan forgiveness sway younger voters for Biden, or is he facing bigger issues now with the Israel-Hamas conflict and its effect on Palestinians? Keith, I pose that question to you.
Time out. I'm going to go back to the old discussion one before I start this new one. The only thing I wanted to say as you wrapped up that segment was there's risk on both sides of the sentencing in my mind. There's risk on overreaching, jail time or something like that. And then there's risk on I'm going to give them community service and make them pick up garbage or something would be like humiliating. Like something like, oh, if it's only community service, then this was all a show trial. You know what I mean? So there's the problem on both ends of that in my mind. There's problem for too much and there's problem for too little, because the too little opens the argument of what you spend all these millions of dollars so you can go tell him he has to work in a soup kitchen for 30 hours a week or whatever, so he's not, I don't like this judge at all, but I don't envy the position he's in. It's a tough position with everything we're facing as a nation, and on the world stage. It's a tough nut. To your question now, Stace, I mean, a lot of the things you just rattled off, these are the things that can bring back the former president. I mean, the world's an unsettled place right now. There is more than one conflict brewing, in full view for people on the nightly news, and there's a couple that are brewing. I mean, China, which used to be the big issue, is kind of on a back burner, but the cyber issues, the Taiwanese situation, the North Korean mess that continues to get more and more provocative. There's a lot of things unsettled that actually the American people are starting to recognize. Usually foreign policy is like, I hear about it, I don't know enough about it. They still don't know much about it, but what they do know is that the world is unsettling. Like there's problems everywhere in a very generic way. They know that. And they look here at home and they're still not feeling comfortable. They're not feeling comfortable about the economy. They're not feeling comfortable about the cost of things. I sat through a dinner last night with my brother and my nephew, and both of them were commiserating about things that went up under COVID or went up during the inflation surge. And we know now the things have been corrected. The supply chain was corrected or whatever it was, but the price remains the same. Like they're gouging us now. That with the economy the way it is, it should be coming down, but nothing ever comes down. And the new normal is killing us right now. So I think pocketbook issues, whether it's fair or unfair to the president, he has to wear it. The border, he's got to wear it. I think the student loan thing cuts both ways. Listen, I've always said it. There's only one person that the former president could potentially beat, and that's the sitting president. Anyway, I think you run Joe or Jim, and they beat him handily. I mean, I think any Democrat of standing could defeat or a new face with any sort of standing could shelf the prospects for the former president that some of you guys fear. But you renominate this president and this vice president who is polling in the 30s among our own party with a real chance that the sitting president might choose to stand down on his own in the next 4 years and make her president. There's an ugly path there for people to say, hey, it's about choices. I don't love Donald Trump, but I can't see myself voting for this president. So I'll end with this, and I know I'm talking too long. I still think there could be an August surprise that I've been talking about now for a year and a half. Because I still, for some reason, I think now that they completely took us off the scent, like he's asked for debates in June. Now he's running. Now I think they've really got us where they want us. There's no chance we think they're changing. I have a feeling they're changing.
Okay.
Well, a lot there. Let me back. A lot there. That was a filibuster. That was longer than your birthday speech.
Shut up. Do some good. I said to do some good.
I love you.
You need to be reasonable. That's the good you're going to do for me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Go ahead. Anyhow.
I think people are looking for stability. We talked about that. Nobody seems to be as enthusiastic for the procedure or the inevitable front runners. We see that. I think it's about stability in the administration. People are going to say, do we want a steady hand, even if we have some reservations about the top of the ticket, or do we want chaos? Stability versus chaos is on the ballot as much as any of the other issues Stacy has rattled off. And I think when you talk about the binary issue, stability versus chaos, it's advantage Democrats, advantage incumbent.
Joseph.
Well, certainly the economy traditionally plays a major role in a presidential race. I just watch the ads. You're going to hear a lot of this quote. I killed Roe v. Wade. You're going to hear a lot of that. And, in spite of the economy, in spite of all the other issues, the border, everything else, I think the women voters of this country will carry this election. And I don't think they're buying Donald Trump's sort of waffling on his braggadocious remarks regarding Roe versus Wade in the past.
There's a great article, by the way, in the Wall Street Journal today, which is Tuesday, June the 4th. The headline is "One family was all in on Biden. Now they're divided over Gaza." And the dateline is Pittsburgh. They're talking about a family that lives in Squirrel Hill and also in Highland Park. And the family is divided. They were all in on Biden. But now, because of Gaza and the Israeli action there, it's starting to divide families. And that's why I kind of posed the question, is the president in danger of losing people, especially younger votes, because of his support of Israel early on and continued military support?
Yeah, Joe Biden isn't what he was in 2020. I mean, a lot's changed. I mean, the presidency beats you up. It ages you, and in this case, it ages a man who was already a pretty old chief executive when he raised his right hand on January 20th of 2021. So you see the wear on him, and he was formidable. I think on the trail last time, he wasn't the old Joe, but he very much had his faculties and seemed to have a handle on things. So there is going to be some concerns of the people that voted from the last time. I don't know that they'll move to Trump, but I've always talked about an undervote. I think there will be a certain percentage of Democrats that would never vote for Trump, but that can't see clear of putting him in office again. They may skip it. They may just vote for the Senate and governor or other offices and not vote. And I think some are on this conflict in the Middle East. I think as costume based, and that will be, again, I'm not sure Trump picks them up. I think it might be another undervote. But the interesting dynamic here that really you scratch your head and you laugh at is because Trump, now this is the third presidential cycle in a row that the Republicans are nominating Donald Trump. So it seems like he's like, oh my God, and again, 3 times in a row. But weirdly enough, he's the change. So I'm just saying, whether you like it or not, there's a lot of people that are just unsettled about the world. They're unsettled about America. They're unsettled about their job situation or the cost of things. And they're like, I don't care. I just want to change. I'll take a chance. I'll take a chance. I'll take a leap of faith. I don't like where things are right now. I'm not comfortable about the world or the country. I'm going to change. And if you want change right now, the change is Trump. I mean, that's the change, and that's why I said, if you nominate anyone else, that's the real change. If we can just get off of, even though you haven't nominated Biden for 3 times, Biden's been on the stage for 50 years. Trump, we've nominated 3. That's why I think you nominate anyone else, it's 55, 58, 42. I think you kick our butt, but be careful, because there are still, the people I talk to are still frustrated. And whether you like it or not, this guy that you think oh my God, you can't even fathom the fact that re-elect the former president, but he's the change.
He's not the change agent. He's the chaos agent.
This presents an interesting tactical decision for Democrats. Generally, we like a high volume turnout. The more people who turn out, the better off we are. And because we have the registration age, obviously.
100%.
This may be a race in which Democrats are really going to have to focus on a targeted turnout. And the tactics might have to change here, because volume may not be the thing for us this time, because volume may give rise to that independent sector in the middle that could go south.
It's the science of micro-targeting, Professor. It's the science of micro-targeting. I saw the algorithm in 2012 when the Obama team teamed up with us on the coordinated campaign, to the household, to the demographic, to what shift they worked, to the message for that specific house, which may not be the same message that your next door neighbor is about to get from the same campaign, but both different messages get you to the poll to vote for your candidate. Advantage Democrats on the micro-targeting, especially when it comes to the mail-in ballots, which Donald Trump has demonized. He's demonized an asset which could have helped him. And that's something to think about.
He's changed his tune on that, though.
Is it too late?
Yeah,
We'll see.
I don't know. That's a good question.
He was pretty effective when he demonized it, too.
Yeah.
Effective.
We have all the quotes. You'll see
I
them
think
again.
that might be one of the reasons he blew it the last time out.
Yeah.
Bad decision.
Yep, exactly. We need to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Trunk and Tales. We're talking about the presidential race more than anything else, so we're going to stay with that before we end the program. I'm getting older. I'm a little tiny bit older than Keith, only by, I'm not going to say how many years. Not decades, but maybe a decade. My memory may be failing, but I do not remember presidential or senatorial candidates running ads in the summer like they've been running this year before the election. And you couple that with the decision to hold 2 presidential debates in the summer. So, Jim, as a former state party chairman, your thoughts on this?
It's necessary. We're in a 24/7 news cycle. We're in a 24/7 social media political cycle. It is 24/7 politics all year round, all the time, and it is part of the necessity of campaigning in the 21st century, and specifically in this decade.
But don't you run the risk, though, by the time the fall comes around, that people are just fed up with it? I mean, they've seen all the ads. I mean, there are going to be some new ads coming out, obviously, and the Democrats will be talking about a convicted felon as far as Donald Trump goes, and who knows what the Republicans will say, But I just wonder whether people whether this might even just keep the vote down.
To some extent, it will wear folks down, but will it suppress the vote? I'm not so sure. Let's get back to the micro-targeting conversation. Like the professor said, and like we've talked about, knowing who your likely voters are, it's part of a coordinated campaign. Identify your likely voter, connect to your likely voter, lock in your likely voter, stay engaged with your voter, and get that voter to the polls. And that is done to the doorstep by coordinated campaigns here in Pennsylvania, in Democratic state parties across the Commonwealth. So yes, you get some fatigue. Admittedly, you'll get fatigue after Labor Day just as well. With the stamina has built up in our society for the marathon political campaigns. This is not a novel thing in 2024. We've seen it now for 10, 15 years. So yeah, there is a risk, but the micro-targeting and the importance of elections, especially this one, I think will overcome that.
Well, they say politics is a sport, and like all sports, these seasons never end. I mean, how long are we going to play hockey? How long do you play basketball? You keep on adding games to the NFL schedule. Seems like they never end, ever. I mean, when do these see? And in politics, there was a time, I've been at this a long time, like my colleagues, that people bitched about it. Like, what the hell are we seeing that? They're immune to that. They're used to it. They think it's just part of the political landscape. That's all. We talk about it all the time, whether we know a lot about it or not. That's the barroom conversation, the picnic conversation, the family gathering, the neighborhoods. I mean, it's now the most prevalent sport in America. And I don't even think they're shocked that they're seeing ads. Years ago, they would have been mortified that in June, millions of dollars are being spent. I don't hear it as much. They're kind of, and let's face it, they're fast forwarding them too. They're not watching. They're on Netflix and Hulu. Like, they don't even care that they're on, because they're not paying attention like they did when there were 4 or 5 channels and you were really getting in their way of their programming. Now that's not happening so much. But there's also now, I think, collectively agree, you guys can think that Trump is the bottom of the barrel, but I know neither one of you are in love with Biden. And you know that Biden has his own issues as a chief executive facing re-election. So with so much, dissatisfaction with the top of the ticket. It now is going to take millions of dollars for these congressmen and senators and governors to sort of distance themselves from their standard bearers and have enough information to try to make a decision just about me, and don't let me live and die on the coattails of the top of the ticket, because they know the top of the tickets, nip and tuck 1 or 2 points. They need to define themselves separately from the top of the ticket. Usually you always find these candidates embracing them. Not this year. This year they know that now Casey wants to be treated differently than the top of the ticket, because obviously the president is losing in all polls in Pennsylvania by 3 or 4. Casey's up 7 or 8. So he's finding that happy medium where don't tie myself to the president. Evaluate me on my accomplishment. I think you're going to see that all around the nation.
Joe, can you wrap this up for us?
Yeah, I long for the days of the political summer picnics. Nothing like them. Nothing more enjoyable and relaxing as we were looking forward to Labor Day, when things began to break open campaign wise. It's a full-time job now. It's a shame, people don't have that chance to socialize and reflect and get ready for the battle that's ahead. But those days are over. Those were the days of the political bosses. They could keep the discipline within each of the parties. They could hold the candidates off until after Labor Day. They kept down costs that way, which was essential.
Amen.
But those days are gone, and I regret that. But this is a different time.
Yep, time marches on. In fact, it says on this program as well. So we are out of time, as a matter of fact.
I love seeing my guys today, all my friends.
Oh, it was great. It was good. We will continue our look at politics and the pivotal election year in the future episodes. But right now, I want to again thank Joe Mystic and Keith Schmidt and Jim Byrne for being with us today. Hold on, Keith. And I also want to say the next time we should have Governor Corbett back with us for his insight on what's going on as well. Keith, you want to say something?
You might not believe this, listeners. I love Jim Byrne.
I love you too, my friend.
We banter, but he's a gem.
Exactly right.
Thank you.
I agree.
Take care,
Joe and
guys.
I don't get along so well, but other than that.
Nobody likes me, I guess. I don't.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us, and thank you for joining us for Trunk and Tails. We'll see you for the next episode. Thanks.
Thank you.